right, we're muting.
Let me know what you want me to.
Start the meeting anytime.
Great.
This is Carrie Gord has joined. So let's see.
Okay.
Are you on here, Carrie?
Participants, become the bottom. Participants. Oh, yes. Over to the left. Right there. That's the hope.
Yeah, I need to sign in here. We're not seeing me up here. Hey, Carrie, can you hear me? All right, so I don't know how we did this, but we have, if you see here, we have one going up here and it's recording and it's focusing in and you're not on it and I'm. So do you mind if I just turn you here and you're still part of the meeting? You make a forum, by the way. So,
Yes.
does that work for you? Yeah, let me see, I think you're muted. I'll tell you. I'm muted. Yeah. All right, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there's going to be an echo.
No.
There's two.
No.
Do you want me to just join the other Zoom meeting? I just joined the one that you sent out.
And I thought that was the one that was on there and it looks like.
The stream can stuff is the same, but the Zoom meeting itself was started with the library because we didn't have, he wasn't here, we didn't have to sign in information's password.
I was late to the game. All right.
So we like Band-Aid did it. So, but you're still here and you can be heard, so perfect. Enjoy here and see everybody.
Oh, perfect. Now we have,
Right?
yeah. Right. Well, let's get going. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:05. And we'll start with any public comments. Okay, we'll skip on to item and approval of the minutes. Anyone give an approval of the minutes?
I moved to approve them.
Okay, do I have a
Question. Things in it in section 4A. I only know this because it says me. It says Carrie Gilbert shared longer window to announce events using city communication. I didn't know what that meant, and I wondered if maybe instead of shared, it was supposed to be like suggested or something. I don't know what you meant.
I can change it to suggested.
I mean, if everybody else reads it that way, that's fine. I just didn't understand what that meant.
All right.
I think you were talking about using the communication with the city of Westland and over a longer period of time versus right prior to the event is what I have in my notes. So,
Okay.
but I can do suggested instead of shared.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, so we had a small technological snafu based on my tardiness being here. They set up the meeting on our Mondo pad with the library login, and I set up this meeting with my login. So you're on my laptop looking at everybody else, and everybody on the computer looking at it, or just looking at that view. So we're technically a quorum. It's technologically band-aided together tonight, and I apologize. I'm hoping you can all hear, and if you can't, yell out at us, we'll enunciate a little more. Does that make sense?
Awesome.
Lauren, you went silent on us.
Yeah, sorry, I muted.
Okay,
Makes sense to me. I can hear you great, Doug, so.
okay.
Great.
Hopefully you won't hear me much because I know others are going to be speaking. So here we go. Let us know, just yell at us or whatever. Okay.
So are we adjusting the minutes?
I'm taking shared and putting in suggested.
Okay. So then we are approving the minutes as
With
being adjusted.
With edit.
Okay, with edit. Do I have a second to approve minutes with edit? Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so moving on, we are going to discuss about the art walk discussion. It's should be very exciting. And also we have with us tonight Jody. Yes. Nice to meet you. I'm Charity. Yes. Yes, so nice to meet you. And of course, we have Carl, our committee. Susan. And Susan. So I think the idea that we came up with was originally doing a large type of art walk. We're trying to figure it out. And in different areas, I was traveling last year and just recently, it seems pretty common to have them join together with the local businesses, to have local art in the businesses that are a nice fit. I was just at another conference this past week, just got back, and every single little business, the local coffee shop, the local restaurants, all had really neat art that was local art that they were displaying either for sale or not for sale, that I thought was really well done. So that's where the idea came from, to see if that would be something that would be of interest to do downtown at Old Willamette, so the business or the business district down in West Linn.
So you're not, so just to clarify, you're not talking about an event where we sort of really encourage people on a particular day or weekend to come through and do the art, but just having things there on an ongoing or rotating basis.
It could be on a rotating basis. Another idea that actually I was discussing with one of my friends about this idea, it'd be neat to have it as we could do as a kickoff to make people aware of it. And for example, Avium could have, they could have hors d'oeuvres, and you could go and you're like, oh, the artwork here is, and here's the art, meet the artist tonight, have hors d'oeuvres, come in, see the art, going to the next location, maybe it's across the street, 1933, they had a different vibe for their art, maybe they're doing some other thing. So it could be a thing we have, like a night of come to the art walk on Old Historic West Linn, Willamette, to do a fun, to bring out the community and do a fun, like, so people are aware of it, like, oh, this is really plugging in, artists exist. So we could do something like that. That'd be a neat art walk type of thing that could be tied together with it. So it's another idea that was given to me.
Years ago, there was an art walk in Willamette that actually had, where people had, there was art in businesses, but also there were, different tents and folks who, artists who wanted to have a location. And that was fairly successful. I think it ran for a number of years, running around at that period of time. I think it went for quite a few years, and then they moved into the park and sort of fell apart after that. But that is another approach, having that open to people who may want to bring their art and exhibit, just like they do sort of like in Lake Oswego, but just for their big art event, but just do it along the street sometime. Obviously, that would need to be something that's done when we have weather
Yeah.
predicted. And the challenge I see with the other is really trying to recruit the businesses to do that, because, for example, Mark, usually has local artists display. The World Park would have local, I mean, they have artists, display that's what we're selling. And some of the other businesses, if that would take a fair amount of recruiting was on somebody's part to get them to say, okay, we'll do it. And their hours would be different. For example, Alley only opens at 4 p.m. And some of the other businesses open earlier, some open later. So I mean, you'd have to sort of decide, you're gonna do something with the hors d'oeuvres or whatever, what time frame you wanted to sort of do a kickoff. I think you'd want to do some kind of kickoff, just to really sort of get people to come. You don't want to sort of have it, anytime in the next month wander through. I think you probably want to have some kind of
Then you could have the businesses all be open during the kickoff.
exactly. Excuse me. So you have some kind of.
There's already a line walking limit.
There's lots. There's still walking in November.
Lots of reasons to walk.
Lots of reasons to walk in November.
That was the other ones that I thought would be good to approach as part of it. It doesn't have to be necessarily like the park walk, just this one road, but it could be the Tumwater, or it could be Pete's Mountain. There's lots of different options where it could be basically a living and breathing art walk, or this is now the artist. This artist on display this month is.
These are the 10 places.
Yeah, exactly. These are the 10 places that are there. And and if the artists are like, yeah, I'm gonna rotate out or change or whatever, they can rotate it out. But I found, so yeah, you have a question?
One, just let's not forget that there's still on 43.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is
absolutely.
not necessarily walking for most people. But then also, I just was curious, and you may not know from the previous time, but like, and this might be too advanced for this idea and this discussion right now, but like, who picks the artists? Is that restaurant? That be the art commission? What would you envision as that process?
I would think it'd have to be cohesive because, you okay? I think the art needs to match the space, and definitely maybe if we have, if say, for example, say Lark, they get to choose from 3 different artists. Which ones would you like to display? What do you think? So I think that might be kind of a nice thing to do, something cohesive.
I'm sorry, one more time.
Hello?
Hello?
Did somebody on Joy or Carrie or Lauren, did you say something?
It looks like they're frozen.
These have pictures, they don't have. Sorry.
So we could make it where they had a say, like 1933, I think, has a certain feel to it, and I think they would want a certain type of art display just because it would fit in with the feel of that restaurant, right? So it could be open to discussion, saying we could pick it, or if they were like, we don't care, do whatever we want, and we could be like, this would be a nice thing to match with this restaurant, and then say, how do you feel about it? So.
I know at Lark right now, it's just the managers, the owners, whoever that that directly make all those choices. And I suspect they would want to continue doing so. But I could see an opportunity for the Art and Culture Commission to kind of offer our services to help out for maybe businesses that would like to display art but don't necessarily have the bandwidth to run that process.
Yeah, I think that's great. And like being able to help them make the little signs if they decide they want to sell their art, just like how we did for the art exhibit. Absolutely. Offering it to be a help.
Have you checked with artists to see if they'd rather do something like this than having just their own studio like many communities do? And I know we've done here in the past as well, where people go to different artists' studios as opposed to having them move their art to a restaurant. Because I think it would really depend a lot on what artists like to do. I mean, if they don't really, it's a lot of work to go move your art to set it up for some period of time. And so, I know the Clackamas County Arts Commission, there, I believe, or was it the Arts Alliance, anyway, they've done that where they've selected artists and they've had shows in different buildings or around the community, and they change those at different times. And so they end up having to spend a fair amount of time, finding artists who are willing to do it, and then hanging the art and getting it back to the person who donated it. So, but you need to have a certain number of artists who are willing to go through that process. So that would be a question I would have for your group is, do you know if there's artists that would be willing to do that, or would they prefer an open studio kind of format?
Well, the ones that I spoke with when they were checking out their arts, when I was here checking them out for our exhibit, I asked them, like, we're thinking about this, we're trying to do artwork, how would that work? They were all really interested because it gives them a lot more traffic to see their arts than having to drive around and finding the studios. And they were like, yes, because some of the paintings that we had in here were $1,500–1,600. And she's like, if I could have them in a permanent, just for people eating dinner or whatever, as you're sitting by something that you're like, I really like that, right? So you're spending time with the art instead of just walking through and looking at it. They were all very interested in having their art be part of that. Just because they get a lot more foot traffic, they said having their studio for them is great, but they don't nearly fit the foot traffic that, let's say, we do for like a place that is a local business that people are coming in all the time to either get them morning coffee or taking their family out to dinner. So, and if they don't want to, there was lots of artists that I met at the farmers market this summer we just did it for our first exhibit that was just local artists from West Linn. There were a ton from Canby, Oregon City, Clackamas that were all at the farmers market that were like, oh, I want to do it. And I'm like, it's because I was going around just voting. And so I think we find a fair amount, not just from West Linn, but from other areas if we were needing to stretch out a bit to say, oh, this artist is from Canby, and they really want to display their art.
Cody, to your point, I think there might be room for both. I think historically a problem with open studios in West Linn is that we don't have a good kind of vehicle to make that happen. We're ostensibly under the Portland Open Studios umbrella, but historically there hasn't been enough traffic to make it work. I think this year there might be one artist in West Linn.
I think there's actually like 8 down here in West Linn, like Oswego area.
Well, Oswego, yes, but if you get into the weeds of it, there's a Oswego West Linn, I think there's one in West Linn, and I've heard from artists who previously practiced. I've never done open studios, but from question that they don't anymore, and there is occasional effort through the Clackamas County Arts Alliance to try to get something going specific to our area. But I think that there is space for both and open studios kind of set up as well as to have more art out in the community. So I don't know that would need to be an either or per se.
Well, I do have a suggestion. I was thinking about the businesses and different things like that. I would strongly suggest if you do, the Willamette Falls Drive, to also have a feature on Salamo and 43 and connect those. I don't know if it becomes an art walk or it becomes like the art connection around Fort West Linn, something like that, that's connecting our 3 disjointed areas, but something that can connect those. And I think it'd be really great to do a big kickoff celebration. We would absolutely.
Areas, course area.
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking 43, so we could do all of 43. But then, the question I would have, and I'm sure businesses will come to you, if they decide to sell a piece, do they get a commission? So does that play in? How does all that work? If they're giving up wall space, if there's some bonus for them. But I would say for the celebration, I think that's brilliant, like a kickoff. And then maybe that's the time that you have the stuff in the restaurants or all the office buildings, but then maybe to have the people set up and the ones that want to travel, the ones that want to be the pop-up, they can do that on that day, and that becomes the big celebration. And I don't know if it's one day or if it's a couple weekends featuring each space. I don't know, just those are my couple cents.
I like her.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to figure out, well, because we are all,
We're all kind of.
yeah, but we connect, darn it. Yeah,
You're right, I like.
or something like that, some way to connect the art throughout all of us.
You just need a passport, you just.
Yep. Yes, I'm also the director for the Lake Oswego Westland Business Recovery Center. And so that's actually something that I have as a goal for a program building, is connecting and actually highlighting the arts too. So this kind of makes it perfect, because I've done a couple of passports and so if that falls into it later on, I am more than happy to build and help do that. And I've got, you guys have connections and I have connections with businesses, we can just definitely work together on that and promote. It was hard, COVID was hard on all the artists getting out there and stuff, so.
I love the kickoff idea and having it where you don't want to have it, because like you said, some artists probably don't want their art stay in a restaurant or in a business, but they want to be a part of it and be able to be there. Like you said, we're now having our first big celebration to appreciate it, the appreciation of art or whatever you call it, art connection. So I love the idea of putting those two together and figure out what we're going to do. So I don't know about the commission. I have no idea how that works. Maybe Carrie or Lauren, do you know from Mark how that works, or no?
I don't know what large study is, but typically you would see something like a 60-40 or 70-30 split. I'm going to the smaller fraction going to the organization displaying the work. But I mean, there's also situations where they aren't taking commission at all.
That's something we'd have to find out.
And that might be something that would vary by business. I mean, if we were trying to do a cohesive program across the board, then we might be able to get all the interested businesses to agree on the same structure.
Okay. Thanks.
Maybe Bishop Tree, can you comment on that in your previous times working with the businesses for something that's across that district? Have they been pretty amicable about the rules being the same, or the kind of how it's going to work out for them?
Yes, I mean, I haven't done an art one per se connection, but I do think you have a very, very strong ground to stand on if it's coming from, your advisory board and saying, this is our goal. We're trying to do this across the board fairly, so if it's, the 30, 70, 25, 75, you can figure out something and just say, this is what we're hoping to do. Because my guess would be that they're thinking they're gonna have to do it for free. You know what I mean? So if you have a little bit of skin in the game that they can get something back, that absolutely is much more. Yes, that is much more appealing. And if they know it's not overwhelming, that they're gonna have to paint a wall and do all this crazy stuff, if they can have some help and support getting that, I think that will mean everything to them. So, okay, I'm gonna just worry about making sure I have staff to run this. You know what I mean? I can worry about all the other elements. If you came in with a list of, hey, here's what we're hoping to do, and it's for everyone, that's really great and inclusive and excellent. I think they'd be totally game with that.
One of the things that we've done here is just a suggestion. Pre-COVID, we did Harry Potter night here. We have 800 people here. We work with the folks here in Central Village to let them know that we were doing that, and to encourage them to be kind of passive participants. So at Starbucks, they made special Harry Potter drinks that day, right? And so they sold out. They did their best day of the whole year. That was their relationship to this. They just said, hey, we'll have, we told them we're here to make a Harry Potter copy, and clearly they were going to have a market choice to get more supplies. So they had a banner, and all the restaurants did banner business here because they knew about it, and they kind of had their own promotion around that. I think that what we would want, I think as a city, and I'm just speaking for myself, but the communication side of it, is ability for people to feel like, okay, I'm part of this community, and yet there is something financially beneficial for me. And because there may be someone that everyone likes that artist, and they sell 10 pieces out of that space, and there may be another that I really like that, but it's more expensive, or my budget I want to spend. You want them to feel like they benefited from it. So whether it's a special drink, and like you said, pairing a bite part with potentially with the businesses, but there may be more than just a financial benefit of the sale. Because I can speak for this gallery space here. The stuff that is very lower, much lower in price sells. The stuff that's worth every penny that if the price is marked on it doesn't. At least it doesn't sell while it's here. It may sell later on and we don't know about it. But that's the case. So I think that it's knowing those kind of things that we've already had some experience with and seeing if that work or applies in this area. Because what I think we're going to want to do as a city, as well as arts and culture, is to encourage and foster those relationships with businesses in the city. And if we can provide them with something other than just do this because you're part of the community, right? There's something advantageous to them. And I think what really can be advantageous to businesses is for them to be able to show in an environment we're offering to bring to be part of what they do, right? So people may come in to see a piece of art from an artist. They're also finding out that this is what happens at that business and they want to participate in that business. So it's kind of a win for both. I'd hate to see something just go in and say, well, we'll give you a percentage of what's sold and nothing sold. So there's a percentage of nothing is nothing. So, and they've spent a lot of time to try to invest in that and make it special for them and for the people that experience. But if nobody sold anything, but they did $2,000 in food and beverage sales in a 2-hour, 3-hour period, they're going to see that as a win.
Right.
One thing I would suggest though, if we are doing this in businesses, I think you really need to have someone in this group or someone who's knowledgeable paint the pictures. I mean, because a lot of business owners may not have the ability or skills to do it the way that the artist would like it, or they may just feel that's very overwhelming. I can think of a couple of businesses that might be very happy to have art, but they're 1 or 2 person shops, and the idea of having to change things off their wall and name art maybe just a bit overwhelming. So I think that you would need to offer that technical support to sort of help them get the art displayed the way the artist wants it to work.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I would say, I like what you were pointing out, I think that's great. I would say, as part of the whole plan, you could say the key, it's businesses supporting businesses locally. Like that is a connector right there. You are not only, you've got your business, you're doing your thing, but you're also going to help another business and you're working together. So it's, new connections. You never know who's going to bring in who's friends. So you're building up your own community as a business owner and connecting in the community as well. Kind of a double win.
Yeah, and I think that, along that corridor, like on this corridor, if everything is a point of sale, right? It's not an object for item for cash or item for money, like a drink or a meal. You have counseling services, you have a bank, you have a health, Zoom care, you have backyard bird shop. You don't really do that. But but there are things that you can go in there and buy, but there's others just like, is it creating more contacts? Is the community starting to know what we do in this community? So it may not lead to a sale that night, but it may lead to business and contacts in the future. So they see it as something that's beneficial to them, even if it doesn't have a huge financial initial component to it. And that's what I think is we don't ask for anything. We hope that sometimes if something sells here, that they will make a donation to the Library Foundation. We encourage that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But this is different. We're not trying to pay the mortgage and or the rent, and we're handling it in a different way. And I think that's important that we recognize that our small business owners are the heart of what we don't have. Tektronix isn't sitting in the middle of West Linn, and we just need to worry about that. We need to worry about all the businesses.
One of the things that came up from one of the artists when they were picking up their art was, it would have been nice to have, whether all the artists, when we were doing, they were here with their art display, and they were here, come meet the artist. And so I thought for this type of art connection was, the business could say, come meet the artist on this night, come have appetizers with her and talk to her about what she did. Why did she display, why did she do the art she's doing? And it could bring in business to the restaurant or wherever it is store. And also give the artists the opportunity to talk about their art. That was one of the cool things that I love the dog one. Dog Linn with dogs. I think my favorite piece that was in here. Love that one. It was darling. And she was telling me all about how, it's house sitting. And it's my friend's dog is longing for the family so well. The whole story was just so adorable. I was like, and that's great. Like, it was really great. So maybe tying that in with come meet the artist, like whoever it is, and they can have to promote their art and talk about their art. Or like, oh, and I love to listen to the artists talking about, oh, I use this kind of, I was using these type of colors for my, this is my plein air that I was doing. Like, it was really interesting to hear how they did help me out. So I think offering that and bringing more like people coming and saying, come out and come have a cocktail and an appetizer and come listen to the artist speak would be a neat way to support. So but that'd be a neat way to do it. Bring the two together.
I have a comment. Sorry. Yeah. I'm trying to cut somebody off for there.
No, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, okay. I mean, it feels like there's positive feelings about this idea and some good feedback from the business community over there on the side. So, I mean, I don't know if it's an official thing. I'd like to propose that we sort of take the next step and maybe make a written plan, make a budget. Like, I think it's a fantastic idea, but I just want to know sort of where does the rubber hit the road, right? Like, how do we find the artists? How do we connect the businesses? What's the plan? Because that's my brain. I think it's great. I mean, I don't know, again, it's an official proposal, but I so move that this is a great idea and we take the next step into seeing if we can actually make it a reality.
I second that. Great.
I'm pretty concerned about the manpower. This is a huge project. The scope of this, especially if we're doing different areas of West Linn, is enormous. So I'm nervous. I like the idea, but I'm pretty nervous about this kid.
Well, thinking of a plan, this is a lot to take on. So I'd say my initial thought would be, we have a group of artists, and we've already started with our first show that we did, contacting them to see if they'd be interested. That would be my first step in saying, this is what we're thinking, and joining with the businesses and finding out the businesses that they would be interested. And starting there, we don't have to take on the entire world right out of the gate, but just going where we can find businesses that are interested to join the Art Connection and building it as we can. I don't think it has to be completely full blown. It's like you do a soft start like they did, the garage just opened. They did a little bit and then we started adding to it. And then we can see, we've never done it before, so we can kind of see how it pans out, right? So we get an overwhelming, like, absolutely, this is great, we get 15 businesses. Then okay, but I think if we do that, then we start adding to it. Then you have to go and ask the community, we need volunteers. We've got to have volunteers to do this, right? One of the things I think that's lacking is we don't ask for help. We don't ask for volunteers. We just say, I'll go do it. No, you actually like, okay, community, we need 10 people to show up at the adult community center to help hang art. And you have someone who knows how to hang art. Carrie and Linn, they know how to hang art, right? And they're to like, okay, tell me what to do, right? So then you start building your manpower, just getting people just for, only need you for a couple hours, and then you start building it. But I think for the first step, we need to go and find the artists that we already have some connections to. They talk to their friends. It doesn't have to just be West Linn. We decide this might be just West Linn. And then we build it from there and start working with the businesses and say which businesses would be interested, what would be a good fit. And see, and like Full Cooper Sound, they have tons of stuff. I don't think they would be a good fit. They're sports driven, they're pretty set. But there's other ones I think that would give a nice fit for this whole idea. And then we start with small things.
I think we could even further back, the sort of from a project management perspective, like I do think we want to reach out to the artists, but all the things that you just said are like part of the plan, right?
Mhm.
So before we contact anybody to say, here is what the plan would be, and somebody, again, I'm so sorry, it's hard for me to see, mentioned Manpower, like that we have people assigned to things before we just say, send out an email to, I don't know how many people are on our thing, even 30, like I just want to come across as organized and with a plan, as opposed to what if, as you said, 15 people are like, yeah, this is amazing, this sounds fantastic, and then we actually don't have anything to back it up on the other side, then it feels like, so I personally would feel so much more comfortable if we actually like went through and wrote down what the plan would be versus scattershotting it. Like that just makes me super uncomfortable personally.
Well, I wasn't planning on scattershotting, if that is a word, but it's more like we are starting with a plan. I think we are now talking about how should we do that plan. So are you volunteering to write one out?
I don't think it feels like it's very much something that you are interested in sort of planning out and driving, and I'm happy to help with the actual work. But I mean, and again, if I just don't want to like just, I want to make sure we do have the manpower for all of the steps.
Sure, absolutely.
Through what is perceived as the whole plan before we start emailing people about if they're interested.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
getting what that plan is before we get
Right.
to kind of ourselves as well. I think that was definitely the problem we suffered with the August show was we kind of got ahead of ourselves in terms of having communications out there, but not necessarily the commitments to do all the things that needed to happen in advance. And this would be a larger
Kind of a suggestion.
Yeah.
I think a balance of both these things. I think we took it down the notes of what we think are some of the things that need to happen for this to happen. We can create a document, Mel and I will create a document with a plan that is, we're just writing down what you said. And you can then come back to the next meeting, we'll have it in the next week or so, and you can prioritize and say, no, that's not what we need to do. And so hopefully after the next meeting, there's a more clarified written plan and a plan of action to go about going forward. And people we need to contact and questions that we need to do. If we go back to Jody and Shatrine about, what businesses you think would be interested, what do you think the capacity would be, do you want to rent easels, right? Is easels an opportunity for people to hang art that don't have places on the walls to hang art? So those are some of the questions that can be asked, but then it can create kind of a communications, is what I do in my life now. I create communication plans on what we're going to do as a city to communicate things. So this is similar to that, a plan that you work on together. We'll provide the script that you created it, we've written it down. We'll put it into what we think is covering everything that you've said, and then you decide the order that it goes in, or some of the to-do or parking lot issues that have to be done. And that way, by the next month or two, you have a working document that kind of outlines, and hopefully everyone's on board, as well as assignments or how many people we're going to need for these kind of things.
And also, can I just chime in there? We don't know how this is going to go. So my initial thought was it doesn't have to be gangbusters with 15 out the gate. I mean, we could start with the one-on-one and build from, say, we're working at a beat at 5, and then you're in the middle of, we are going to do a celebration opening with 5 businesses. You should be aware of what they are, right? So it doesn't have to be all or nothing, this is my, because I think it's gonna take a little more time than that.
Yeah.
First, right?
Well, and I think the key thing, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, I'll chime in later.
Sorry, I just had a question for, should be an enjoying question for you guys. I was wondering if this was an idea that has ever, like, has been floated at all to business owners, or something that, either of you have encountered in any conversations with any local businesses as something that they would like to support, or, would like to have more art on the wall, sort of, what have you?
Well, that was sort of leading into exactly what I was gonna say, so thank you for that intro. I was gonna say, I don't know if we have, at least Main Street, have the bandwidth. We have 2 big events coming up in the next 2-3 months. Well, actually 3, we have Halloween, which is, you know, a lot of fun, and you can all come and give out candy, but then we also have the distillery walk, and then we have a holiday market, which is a very big deal. In beginning of December, so we don't have a lot of bandwidth to be talking to the business owners, and I can tell you, and Shatri can also chime in on this, that trying to get the business owners interested in helping out is a big time-consuming lift, because with both the wine walk and the distillery walk, what we're really doing is trying to find businesses that will host that and in their location, whether that be in a restaurant or it's in a business. And they may want to have some food, and they need to have extra staff and have to change their hours. And I think that takes a lot of energy, and the businesses, it's a real stretch. And so right now, you know, I'm thinking, oh, how can we ask them for something else? And who's going to do the asking? Probably not Rebecca and myself, because right now we've got these other 2 things that are sort of coming up, or 3 things that we're talking with them about. And most of the time, yeah, we turn off my phone to do that. Something from the city. We'll talk about them later. I think, for example, the Heritage Area Coalition just had an event to honor businesses in Westland, well, across our heritage area that have been in business in Westland for 50 years, right? And we had 2 businesses honored this time. Neither one of those businesses was able to come. A La Fiesta, because there's been a restaurant business in that location for over 50 years. Jose really wanted to come. He called up 3 hours before the event and said, I can't get anybody to cover. I can't be there. So I think it's really that sensitivity of, like I said before, how we help them. But I don't know if we have the bandwidth to go out and ask, because it becomes a pretty heavy lift to try to encourage people to do this when they're short staffed. They can't even cook because they don't have enough staff. They're having to cover that. So in the plan, I think that needs to be really sort of looked at in terms of, okay, who's got the bandwidth to go on top of the restaurants? How do we really help them to feel like they can do this? Because that's really what we found with these events. I mean, and I'm sure you can talk to Rebecca about trying to get the folks to even volunteer to have a wine tasting in their business. I mean, you know, that sounds like, well, it'd be pretty easy, not so much. But we got people to do it.
Yes.
But it's still kind of intense.
Right, yeah.
People are still, it's very interesting, you know, as we move through COVID, they're still trying to survive. I mean, and it's very interesting because you'll have the well-established businesses now that have champed it and made it through these 2 years are coming to us going, whoo, okay, we're at the end of our road. So it's a very interesting thing. And even small things like, would you hang some art becomes like, oh my goodness. But that is not to say that this is not a good idea. It is, I'm wondering timing wise, and if you're building a plan, you know, does it become a spring thing? Because you've got nicer weather.
Yeah.
You've got more time for the planning portion, because I do think a serious social media, you know, like you have to have a whole plan, give yourself some time to, but what I would say, you know, as we move past the holidays, because that can be very intense. You want to, you know, set up the plan, and then the outreach can be like, hey, here's a little tester to see if you guys would be interested. And then, you know, touch base in January when everything's really slow, you know, and just say, what do you guys think about this? And then start building, you know, that. But I do have an email database of all of the, and I confirm emails of all the Westland businesses too. So I can send that out as a blanket. Hi all. here's what we're trying to put together, you know what I mean? So as the plan gets done, you know, we have all these steps and we're like, hey, this will be in spring, you know, this thing, what do you all think? And we can have them respond that way too, to do a call out after you have all the things lined out. So just know that's an option. You don't have, there will be some knocking and, you know, feet on the pavement, but I think that's a good one to do an overall reach to get the feel and see who's interested. I would suggest, this is just my thoughts, but with working with the businesses, if you start out and just do one business, somebody's gonna say, why'd you choose them?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, so that, and you know, of course, then they'll be like, oh, are they in Willamette? Oh, are they on 43? It just, the drama. Yes, yes,
Didn't have that, but then they saw the business next door having somebody, it was like,
yes. And it's just hard, yeah. So the cleanest and fairest that we could do it, so if it would be come spring and it could be a kickoff event to where everybody is celebrated, yay. I think that might be the most inclusive possible way you could do it, but I know it's a lot, so I don't know if that becomes in the summer. But anyway, sorry, you know, that's just my two cents on that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We're open to all experience for sure. This new territory.
Yeah.
To do.
Well, and I was, some of my friends, my husband's been teaching in high school here for a couple, 10 plus years. So we were in Canby for a while, and they actually, I just helped some friends do the Canby Arts Association. They did that in July. So I was helping do all that with them. And it was really interesting. They do, yes, there are a lot of artists from all around. So I do think we will have the buckets and the connection for that, so, and of course they have some contacts with Lake Oswego Art too. So, if you decide to do it, but if there's a way to start with Westland, I think that'd be super. And then stretch out, because there will be plenty.
So would you suggest doing it as in like, get everything, all the businesses lined up and do it as like, we are doing an art connection, spring art connection?
Yeah, like that would be, and then also figure out, and this is again, where everybody's talking about bandwidth, and having volunteers, so it'll take a team of volunteers.
Yeah.
But if you could do pop-ups in those different areas too, like, because again, yeah, you'll have a bigger reach. I think it'll just be a fun connecting thing again too. But again, that's just me saying big picture, so then really lay out the plan to see if it's achievable, or if it needs to be scaled down. But yeah, if you can do it, I definitely do that, because I think this is just gonna be like, oh. And then that's when we reach out to Mountain Territory, we reach out to Travel Oregon and say, hey, look what we're doing. And they will be so excited to celebrate with us, because that would bring more people in.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, they're very interested in that right now. So, yeah.
And spring or summer sounds like a reasonable timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it could possibly go.
No, I think
It's just-
spring is, once we get our ducks in a row, I think spring would be a great time to launch it. And also businesses are slower than
Yes.
January, February is very slow.
Yeah.
So if we could get it set up where they're bringing more business and we get it all done. That's in what time frame, like for how long would the art be displayed?
Yes, I mean, very strategic and promoting the businesses and the artists. It's again, supporting local businesses on both sides. It makes a very nice plan, and we encourage that, I would think.
Yeah, that'd be very good. Okay, that'd be very exciting.
Thank you.
Appreciate your-
Do we have any more discussion, or I'm gonna call it Art Connection now?
Temporary,
More, yeah. More.
Would you like us to do that?
Yes.
The things that we talked about
I would love that.
in the document.
Oh, wow.
All right, Mel, I don't know. We'll come back and we'll do that. Hopefully in the next week, we'll have that to everybody that's here. And that way you can start. talking about arrangement and timelines.
So what about the very
Well, the big response to get like some kind of brief email, like you said, this is out to the businesses to get who would be interested in participating, and then how many artists would be interested in participating. We kind of start just getting a feel for it.
Yep, get that event lined out, and then, do the outreach and kind of have your steps and figure that out. Yeah, absolutely.
Great, that would be wonderful. All right, so next on the agenda was the additional discussion of youth art exhibit and with the Wilsonville School District and Art Commission. So we had talked some about that, and Susan had talked about having the music art project, having an art exhibit there, or even the adult community center, because we did the one, we had a lot of interest, or I did when I was at the farmers market this summer. A very exciting parents who wanted their kids' art displayed, and I said, oh, it's only for 18 or up. They're like, oh, man, you know, so we're trying to think of something that would be for youth and tying it into,
That'd be great.
yeah, with the schools. Doug, I cannot remember what we talked about as far as like what the rules are around what we can and do, or.
Yeah, it's, I mean, with the school district.
Yeah.
So, I think, again, they're all about parity. And, so they're going to, I can tell you right now that if this is just a Westland event, they're gonna shoot it down. It needs to be a Wilsonville event. About that. And I've mentioned it to the library director of Wilsonville, and they're willing to talk to us about it. They're for it. And I think if we, you know, I think I know there was some talk about what the schools were, that to create that unity or that equity, excuse me. We do it at both the libraries, and it's two places, both in the communities at the same time, between the children, whatever you decide, the age groups or whatever inside of that. And working with their art commission, to come up with some guidelines.
Okay.
I think for it to happen with the school district, you're talking about a year out. They like, when I meet with them, they want things that are pretty much already done and
Right.
ready to go. And also that they can fit into their school timelines, and they want to talk with their staff about it, right?
Right.
They're not necessarily wanting to bring it down. So they need to meet with whatever groups are, whether it's the art teachers at the various schools, or those that turn art, or whatever. That's something we do already, not with art, but like right now as we speak, is kindergarten carnival downstairs. Each day this week will be another school, and teachers are down there and parents are down there.
Yeah, I think they're one of the closest until the evening.
Yeah, so
Down
we
there.
work with them on things like this all the time, but it's something that they really do want. We're gonna get it done. I just would suggest that we do it in partnership. It has a better shot at their money. And if you're asking the school district about doing this, it needs to be for it.
With the plans.
Got a plan.
Got it.
Yeah, so that comes to my next question, because we originally had talked about having an adult space, wall space bigger for people to come and see the different students' art. So would that be something separate to do from the school district, or are we tying in with the school districts because it makes it equitable, because all students can be considered for?
At least it's equitable enough, and it's also equitable for space, meaning they will look for, they don't want something just in West Linn or just in Wilsonville, because they're
Right.
concerned about their folks in those communities being able to go to those communities to experience whatever it might be. So I'm gonna say I don't personally know if they have the equivalent of an adult community center. Why I say libraries is because I can control this space, right? I can't control it. Adult community center has lots of programs going all the time, so the farther, I'm not saying it's not available, but it's booked. It's heavily for a long period of time. And what's the equivalent of it there? It's nice having that uniformity of
Right.
at the libraries or the art show. I mean, the adult community centers are the art show. I don't know if they have the facility standpoint and then how booked out they are. You know, we've all gone to events that are not necessarily adult community center events, but whether it be, you know,
Right.
classes or other things going on there. And that's fairly well booked out. So if we're going to be taking out big spaces, it's going to need to be around that. And for that to actually happen, it's going to be a long time to get out. We're here, yes, it's a smaller space, but we can also make it easy in the library. But it's a space that's dedicated to this, to libraries all the time. And so it's not, I need to see if they're having tap dance class and
Right.
fitness class and
Yeah.
yoga, and the way to the dog treating on this day, right? So we can control that a little bit. We're thankful they have that, right? That's awesome. But it's a hard space to see, and then is there some network space in Wilkesville?
Wilkesville, their library is great. And I've been to exhibits at their library, you know, around different heritage things. They do really nice exhibits in their library, so that would be nice to be equitable in terms of both libraries.
Yeah, I know that's easier for me to do it that way, than it would be to do it in a different. But I can almost guarantee you, if we want the school district's approval, it needs to be in both places.
Okay. So should we just put it on the docket, or we're gonna keep moving with it and see how it goes and then plan for a year?
We make a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there would be.
another plan.
Maybe it's next fall that we put it into place, but I think, again, these things just take a lot of time and planning and joy of bureaucracy. So the more runway we have, the more chance we'll all be successful. So.
Okay.
Last time, yeah, I thought you just that you're gonna put together a proposal for doing that, Carrie.
For the art exhibit, for the youth art exhibit, well, I mean, I talked about it, but there wasn't much I could do because of the Weston Wilsonville school district situation. So I knew there was a caveat of doing that.
So man,
Okay, I just thought that was the next step, was that you're gonna put together and then I'm gonna.
Well, Doug and I talked about it, this part is that I was waiting, because he had to talk to the district, like, we couldn't really do much about it.
so I think it's still a possibility. This would be my suggestion, is I can talk about specifics. I think what we need to do, and I agree with Lauren, the plan piece is, we need to be able to, if we get Wilsonville, I don't think Wilsonville Library is going to be hard to do, obviously, for this one. The question is going to be, what's your parameters? Who is it going to be? Who are your artists? Because if you understand the school district, the way that it's administrated, obviously there's a superintendent and a board, but there are assistant superintendents that preside over primary schools or middle and high secondary schools. So if it's going to be secondary schools, I know who to talk to, as well as Kathy and Andrew Filstrom. If it's primary schools, I know who to talk to, right? If it's all of them, I would suggest not, because that is a lot, right?
And that was the other thing I think we had to figure out too, is like, how much art are we talking about? Because we're gonna get a lot of art. So what are the age parameters? What are the parameters around the whole thing? So
yeah, so if anybody kind of, I don't say I dropped the ball, I just didn't get all the answers that we need, I think, from the school district. That doesn't mean that this can't happen with that age group, it just won't be publicized by them, right? And if you want it to be really interactive, we're gonna have to do it more than just the school district, because there's lots of kids that are homeschooled, there's lots of other kids go to Jesuit, so they go to other programs and doing other things. So to be equitable, we want to make sure we got it to as many people as we could besides the school district kids, but that's the majority of it. If you don't want to go that direction, then it is different, right? But I do think, based on our successes in getting the word out, like Kindergarten Carnival or other things that we do, it's having their buy-in, because if you have their buy-in, then you have their attention, and you also can start distributing things in their schools, or them get backpacks. And that is a difficult lift. It has to be, again, it has to be equitable, and it has to be defined, and it has to have, this is where we want to do it. And I think really, a lot of the questions that we need to ask the school district are going to require multiple people to sign off and multiple different answers. You know, so what are the artists? Do the art teachers want to do this? They don't want to do it. They're going to say we don't want to do this, right? They're not going to. This is somewhat extracurricular for them, right? I mean, I don't see this as part of their curriculum. Is create an art piece to submit to an art show, so it's an extra. Do they understand it, or how are we going to go about doing that? So I think the point is in place. What I would like to be able to do, and I have to bring this up, if you can define a couple of things for me, will help me in this discussion. What's the age group that you'd like to propose for the school district, right? I would highly recommend it not be K through 12. It's whatever it is. It's And you probably should follow into the 3 different schools. I mean, if you want to do.
Yeah, working but I gotta go. So.
Okay. Thank you.
But
I don't know, one of the agenda items was about the church furniture thing. I didn't know if folks wanted any kind of update.
Yes, give her update, Carrie. How did you go?
More minutes for that.
Tell us about it. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't know what, I mean, the event was fantastic and I appreciate it. Like I saw Susan there and I saw Lauren there. And I don't think we had more than 30 seconds for the whole day when there wasn't somebody actively painting the mural I designed. So it was just really cool. And Susan, it was so great to see, like, everybody was talking about the YMP folks that were playing music and participated in the event. So it was awesome. It was pretty great.
Our executive director at YMP was on one of the subcommittees for helping to plan the event. So we were pretty big part of it. It was cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I don't know how I got a formal update to say. I just happened, I guess I was surprised to see it on the agenda, but I just wanted to say all that and say thanks to everybody who turned up. Mary was there as well.
It was amazing. It was fun.
it was very fun.
So where are the murals now, Carrie?
My panel is now in my garage. Each artist is doing any final touch-ups that need to happen. And then they're getting transported, I'm not sure where, to get sealed.
Okay.
So they'll have like the same top coat. And then starting in, I think November 1, they'll be in the Oregon City Library for 3 months. And then hopefully where you get, well, not in that room, but at the library, at our library after that.
Yeah, we're next year, I believe. We have defined dates. I don't have them exactly.
Can I ask a question? Does someone have a picture of all 3 of them? I'd love to get a picture. Do you have any?
I have a couple photos. I posted each of them on Instagram, so you can kind of like swipe through each panel as well. But I can send you the photos I have.
Thank
They are
you.
like amazing. They're just so
Yeah.
cool.
Same season.
So that's why I had that on the agenda, is for people to find out what happened at the event. So where are the panels, where are they going? That's why I had it on the agenda.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure if there were questions that I didn't like.
I'd love to see them too. I was floating the river with the sustainability.
Oh,
It was very fun for the river watershed tour.
oh, yeah.
So it was very, very. So I waved.
I was saying, come in the hall for
Really cool.
It was all nice.
Thank you. I think for the art exhibit, we should just marinate on it some more, think about it, and we'll come around back to it. Sounds like we have plenty of time for that.
So drop, but
That's
it's
okay,
here to see you guys.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Carrie.
Bye.
Bye.
Then we're agreeing on the art, the youth art exhibit. Do you have some comments?
Just concerned about,
Yeah.
again, the scope and the.
Well, I just need to go back to it. That's something where it's like, it's on the docket. I can think about it. 'Cause now that we know about the districts, Oregon School District, we have time to kind of figure out what would be the one, just something like that.
Sure. I would say for, as you're thinking about criteria and all that stuff. So myself and my kids have entered artwork for the Plaquemines County Fair and the State Fair. I would pull up there a little what it requires, see if there's anything in there, like they might have some pretty darn good general info that you could, yes, I need that. There's something there, like, do you know what I mean? Just something that's, at least have it be a jumping point to see it. It might be that thing that you're like, oh yeah, this is too much.
You know, they get schools over there art
Yeah.
every year. They, I mean, they
Yes.
always had kids art inside
Yes.
the art, the building there. And so they probably have some pretty good ideas of what's worked and what hasn't
Yes.
worked, because they've been doing it now for 100 years.
Oh, yeah. And one of the gals that's on their committee actually lives in West Linn.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe we can
Yeah.
told her.
That would be great to get some ideas. Already.
Because they've done it for a number of years.
Yeah, so how are they doing it? Their whole thing, so that'd be good. revisit, because it feels a bit overwhelming.
Sorry, like, okay.
Right. Any board comments?
Well, I was gonna comment on the art bridge celebration and Carrie, thank her for being there and doing that. Was
I was sad I could not be there at this meeting. So it ended at 1, right?
We can only just long.
I know.
Oh, we're so slow on your own. 2:30, I was like, okay, I'm going to.